Eren's going through a phase right now. I think he's trying to tell us something along the lines of this is my war. I'm kind of scratching my head at what that means exactly. So, Attack on Titan, the final season, episode 12 has been released and a lot has happened this episode, which I'm going to cover in this video on what happened and what led to it. So, without further ado, let's review what happened in this exciting episode. The episode starts off with Armin in the dungeon seeing Annie, who's still in her crystal barrier. Armin tries to make contact with Annie by nearly placing his hand on the crystal. Then, some woman called him out and told him, "You're not allowed to touch that girl, mister." And what do you know? We see a very familiar face, and it's none other than Hitch. I gotta say, it's been a while since we saw her character in the anime. And damn, she looks very fine. And Mappa has done her character very well. Anyways, Armin blushes and gets embarrassed as he makes excuses such as Titan memories can only be transferred through touch and wasn't gonna do something inappropriate towards Annie. Hitch teases him, saying you're just a guy wanting to get close with Annie. Poor Armin is trying to convince her that that's not the case, while saying please don't ban me from seeing her, as Hitch tells Armin she wasn't planning on it and said it would be boring for Annie if she is the only one talking. Soon after the whole dilemma, Hitch and Armin are back at the surface and she asked him about the recent news. Armin said no, he doesn't know, and Hitch gave him the newspaper. And Armin was surprised to see the headlines of the military detaining Eren, with the paper deeming the military is becoming untrustworthy, as Hitch explains that the military hasn't been answering the people of their questions and concerns, as well as Zeke's plan for the rumbling. After Armin catches up, we see a bunch of protesters outside of HQ demanding for the release of Eren Yeager for the fate of the Eldian Empire. Hitch goes off to help fend off the protest, and Mikasa shouts Armin's name as she fast approaches him. Armin was glad to see her, and Mikasa tells him there's no time to lose, and they went inside HQ. While heading up the stairs, Mikasa and Armin noticed 3 suspicious recruits from the scout regiment. After that, we transition to seeing Yelena and Pixies talking to one another on a balcony. Yelena confesses to Pixies that she did in fact meet up with Eren. Yelena explains that she felt Eldia were too isolated and left behind from the rest of the world, and says Eren too shared that same thought. So from that, Pixies believe Yelena convinced Eren to infiltrate Marley for the military to move. However, Yelena states not quite what she had in mind. Even so, Pixie was dismayed that Yelena set up a secret meeting with Eren without any strong plans, as she agrees because she can meet Eren in public. Pixie sees it was a tough risk, as now Eren is not manipulated just as Zeke hoped Yelena could do. Yelena, however, in no laughing matter doesn't care about that, as she wants to get to know who Eren is. Realizing she blunked that out, she sips some tea to cool down. She states they wanted Eren's fighting Titan power to crush Marley, and to their expectations, he did an amazing job at it, as Eren delivered a massive blow on Marley that they wish upon Marley for years. She turns to Pixies and asks him, do you know what we're witnessing? With a joyful smile on her face, as she believes history is about to change and she wants to be there in the Yeager brothers' side to see it happen. After hearing what she had to say, Pixie says, so you met Eren out of curiosity, as Yelena said yes to him, as the other volunteers didn't know she met Eren in secret. Despite her reckless actions, she claims it was all for the sake of Eldia. Pixie likes to believe her and demands her to tell him everything she and Eren spoke about in their meeting. After their conversation, we see Oin Capone and Hanji playing cards with just the two of them in a remote house. Oin Capone couldn't believe that Eldians distrusted them, as they did so many wonderful things such as construction and intel these past few years. Hanji apologized to him, as Oin Capone still couldn't believe it and asked her didn't we swear to work together, as Hanji gets so close to his face with a disgusted look on her like she's about to constipate. A very weird Hanji moment right there. Then Oin Capone was told that Yelena met Eren in secret, which he didn't know at all. Hanji from her side doesn't see that he's lying and could tell that he's not saying Yelena would do that, as she proceeds to ask him to tell him more about Yelena for the sake of their future. Oin Capone coughs off what he knows about Yelena and says that she got her hands dirty to show Zeke he could trust her, as anyone who would doubt Yelena's motives, those same people died by her hands and were labeled as accidental deaths. However, despite Yelena's blood loss, the volunteers would push that aside so that their homelands could be reclaimed from Marley one day. Hearing this, Hanji thinks it's strange as Yelena pressed the island's government to give Marlians certain rights, as Oin Capone mentioned her being merciless to Marlians. Hearing this information, Hanji decides to take Oin Capone somewhere. As that happened, we transition to the protest still occurring through the view of the commander-in-chief's window, Zachary. We see Zachary called up Armin and Mikasa to tell them they can't visit Eren. Troubling to understand this, Armin asks him why. The The reason being is Eren contacted volunteers and he kept it a secret between meeting them, as everyone thinks that's what led them to attack Marley. On top of that, Eren has been silent on them when they tried to get him to tell them what he was doing in Marley when he was there alone. And then Zachary revealed a bombshell to Mikasa and Armin that they believe that Eren is being manipulated by Zeke. He told them this information as it's just those two since they're close to Eren. Mikasa asked Zachary what happened to Eren, and as Zachary is standing there staring at her in silence, Mikasa and Armin realize there's a funny looking chair in Zachary's office as he tells him they were brought in by some recruits. Armin asks Zachary if Eren isn't talking, that's more of a reason that they could help trying to get the truth out of him. Zachary declines Armin's idea as Zachary states the situation right now is too delicate and asks both Armin and Mikasa to leave the office. Once they left, Mikasa couldn't believe with Zachary's decision to drop Armin's idea of just the two of them. Speaking of Eren, Armin believes that the military are losing faith in Eren. Then we see three individuals go inside Zachary's office. Then Armin continued that he believes that the military found someone to inherit the founding titan. Since things weren't going their way, Mikasa decides to try to hear in their conversation from the outside, and Armin grabs her hand and tries to tell her not to do it. As Mikasa says to him she won't get caught and tells Armin what happens, she'll make sure Eren. Then Mikasa realizes as she cuts off her sentence that something was wrong, and then all of a sudden, kaboom, a huge explosion occurred from Zachary's office. A half-a-body corpse of Zachary comes out flying and lands on the outside floor in front of the protesters and HQ guards. With the commotion going on, Armin and Mikasa go outside and ask Hitch what just happened. She tells him Zachary's room exploded and they see that his body is laying on the floor. From what seems to be a terrorist attack, the protesters shout out Shinso wo Sasagyo, meaning giving your hearts, as they took advantage of this moment to show the military and government HQ that they're angry and want to fight. After that, we see the government officials in the HQ room, along with Eren's friends being there as they believed that a special chair had a bomb to assassinate Zachary, which also took out 3 unlucky soldiers. With that said, they don't know who did it or know their goals. Hanji spoke up first that the volunteers were on house arrest and Oikapon was always with her when it happened. Armin spoke up that Zachary said recruits brought the chair to his room, and one of the guys in the room said from where, and Armin said he never mentioned who they are. However, he said before him and Mikasa went inside the room, they saw scout recruits leaving HQ. When Armin said that, the whole room went quiet and had shocked expressions on their eyes. The guy who asked him that question to Armin said, weren't there scouts who leaked information about Eren? As he gets cut off by a person from the military police barging in the room and says that Eren Yeager escaped from his cell, which put the whole room in a frenzy as the commander of the military police, Neil, commands them to search for Eren. After one commotion to another, Mikasa says to Armin what's happening with a startling expression on her face, seeing that everything's not going to be the same anymore. Then we see Eren Yeager half naked walking up a hill in sunset, and then we see Fluge and the other escapees as well as the defected scouts armed and waiting for Eren's arrival. As Eren approaches Fluge and asks him, is this everyone? As Fluge tells him, besides them, they have allies hiding in the military on top of the 3 people who blew up Zachary, which pretty much confirms that they were the ones who were behind the explosion after all. Fluge adds that the only person who can save the Eldian Empire is Eren Yeager, as he gives Eren a brown robe. As he puts it on, we see this epic display scene of Eren putting it on in the sunset, and it was the most epic moment in probably this season of Attack on Titan as of right now. While putting it on, Eren asks him to find where Zeke is being kept at. The next day, the military police states Eren escaped along with 100 soldiers who have defected while the timing of Eren's escape, as well as they believe they're the ones behind Zachary's assassination, as they decided on a name on them, and they've decided to call them Jaegerists, the anti-military insurgents. That being said, Hanji has asked what their goal is, and she believes they're hoping for Zeke and Eren to reunite, reforming the military with Eren as their leader, and then killing Zachary just proves their resolve in this matter. They believe what provoked them to do it is the military will have someone to inherit the Flying Titan from Eren without telling anyone. As Zao said, the military police note that most of the defects were from the scouts, with them asking how Hanji would take responsibility, as she says she'll accept any punishment for this. However, she won't resign as it won't do anyone good, and they still don't know how many Jaegerists are hiding amongst themselves, as things start to get tense between the military police and the scouts, with Asuma B2 being there witnessing the arguments. Pixies and his soldiers barges inside the room and shouts that they have a guest in the room and there's other things to be bickering about. Pixies asks where Zeke is being kept, and Hanji says Levi and some 30 soldiers are with him, and Pixies asks Niall, the commander from the military police, if Historia's location is safe, as Niall answers only a few know her location, but he'll check it out, as as Pixie explains to the rest that Eren would try to contact Zeke and Astoria, so protecting them is top priority on their list. As everyone says yes, Armin tells Pixies that since they lost the commander-in-chief, the only person who could lead them is Pixies himself, as he asks him what should they do given the situation they're in right now. Thinking about Armin's idea, Pixies lifts his hands up in a sigh and says they've already been beaten and we should surrender to Eren. The other garrisons were frightened of his response to hear this from their bald-headed wise man, Pixies, as he explains that they don't know the enemy's approach, and if the garrisons were to take them out, it would cause a lot of lives to be lost, as it was their decisions that have led the soldiers to defect. As a woman from the military police couldn't believe what Pixies is saying, as they should just bow down to the people who killed Zachary. Pixies affirms the idea that he knew Zachary for years and to live and die by revolution would be what he wanted, as the four who died in an explosion wouldn't want their deaths to cause Eldia's fall. Niall admits that they may have to submit to the Jaeger brothers. Pixies claims they won't have to do that and instead bargain with the Jaegerists over Zeke, as the island's future rests on the test run of the rumbling. So for the time being, they must look over Zachary's death in order to prevent more of their comrades to being murdered. With that being said, he ordered his troops to leave the room as Azuma B2 stood up from her seat. Pixie said to her that he's ashamed that she had to witness this ordeal. Azuma B2 responded that that shouldn't be a thing to worry about, as every country goes through this. That being said, Pixies asks Azuma B2 that he can't guarantee your safety and asks her to return to the port until it's all over. She agrees with what he said and hopes for the best of luck for Paradise Island. As she turns her sights, Azuma B2 tells Mikasa if anything were to happen, just come to the ship where she will be for safety. Mikasa appreciates her concern. However, Mikasa is Eldian, as she wants the place where she's born to have a future and tells her not to concern herself with her. Hearing that, Azuma B2 latches on Mikasa and claims the whole reason they came to the island was to meet her, and Mikasa replies back so it wasn't for the resources, following up with "you don't care who's running the country as long as the rumbling succeeds." Azuma B2 with some discomfort says yes, and if that doesn't happen, the Hizuru nation will hang them dry, as well as saying their investments will be in jeopardy and her family will be done for. As Mika responds, all the more reason to not trust you. Azuma B2 explains to her no matter how her family endured and gets called out for being money-grabbing vixens, they still haven't lost pride in the clan, that Mikasa's mother passed on family's crest to her daughter, stating no matter what happens to their country, they wish to protect Mikasa. After that meeting from HQ, all of Eren's friends gather near their horses, talking about Eren and his motives. From what they know, Connie asks Mikasa whose side she is on. Mikasa turns around and answers him that her and Armin almost died in the explosion, showing it's pretty obvious that Mikasa is on their side. Hanji joins in the conversation and states any infighting will lead to downfall according to Pixies. Jean asks Hanji if she's okay with both Eren and Zeke, and she says no since Zeke and Yelena were planning this to happen, and states they all need to take precautions. She turns to their direction and tells them they need to get Zeke before anything bad happens, and hopes that her concerns turn out to be nothing. Before they're about to depart, Jean notices that Hanji is bothered by something, and she tells him that Yelena has set up Marleyan prisoners to work in odd jobs such as working in restaurants. As she said that, we transition to a big fancy restaurant building, and we see the Sasha family entering the restaurant along with Falco and Gabby, which by the way from the last episode we're told by Kaya that there's a Marlarian who works in a restaurant that could possibly bring both Falco and Gabby back to their homeland of Marley. And then switches back to Hanji and others riding on their horses to get to their destination, and once they rode through town, the camera zooms in towards a person in a hood disguise reading a newspaper, and once it zooms all the way in on a person's face, it reveals that the person who was reading the newspaper under that hood turns out to be Peck. We see that Peck has somehow managed to infiltrate Paradise Island and seems to be up to something, as she notices they're riding scout horses as the episode ends there. Alrighty then, well, this episode was excellent. However, there were a few things that bring up. Now, some scenes that were from the manga didn't appear in the anime in this episode, and the one scene that I was disappointed we didn't get to see in this episode that was not animated was the scene where the prison guards go check Eren's cell and they see a big hole on the wall blocked by the Warhammer Titan Hardened ability. That kind of sucked, but hey, they might pull up that scene again next episode, but who knows. And also, last thing before I end this off, the scene where Eren puts on his robe in the sunset. I believe it was done well. I believe Mappa did a great job. And I know compared to manga, it wasn't exactly the same thing, like Eren's pose was different. However, the trailer version, where it was more identical to the manga version, though looking back at it, the trailer version, Eren's proportions weren't really that great in my opinion. Like we see Eren's body is very huge and muscular and big. As for his head, it was kind of small compared to his large body in the trailer version. So which is why I think Mappa did a great job on fixing his body proportion for that scene scene. And that being said, for my final take, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, please give this video a like, and if you want, consider subscribing to my channel for more Attack on Titan content in the future. And so see you all next time in the next video. Peace.